A mini reef is essentially a bait box that rides under a dock in an area most often that has a loss of natural habitat. A mini reef is designed to receive invertebrates, sponges, tunicates, macroalgae, oysters, and they colonize on the mini reef and make it home. Mini reefs are said to soften canals. Many canals have been formed throughout Florida to create more waterfront for inland property owners. In the process of doing that, they've hardened canals, quote unquote, and have put a lot of cement in place where mangroves used to exist or before even water was in that area. Mini reefs are a solution to softening those canalways and providing nurseries for new hatches of fishes, new crabs. These are, again, replacing mangroves that used to provide the same function for these creatures. One of the most common bits of feedback from the nearly 200 reefs that we have out of Anna Maria and associated waters is immediately we hear the dock owner talk about the attraction of fish. Fish become curious, and why do fish become curious around the mini reef? Well, the mini reef, as we talked about, is a restoration of habitat, and it's a natural nursery for the smaller fish that have been hatched in that area. They stick to that mini reef environment because there is nothing else in which they can find safety. So you know that they're starting to grow around the nursery, and what will come along is feeders. And the larger fish, redfish, snook, or people are just giddy when they talk to me about what they have out around their dock opposed to what they had before they put the mini reef under their dock. Mini reefs, like kidneys, clean, purify water, liquids. Nitrogen is literally 80% of air, but plants can't use it as it enters the ocean. It has to be in ammonium form, which is a form of waste. When fertilizers, which are already converted to ammonium and are rich in nitrogen, enter in high levels, they create a super feeding of algae. The algae gluts basically itself and eats to the point where it eats so much and then it starts to compete with itself and it dies. As it dies, it creates a blanket over the water that really covers the bottom and all the water from the bottom up to the blanket from sunlight. Take a look at this picture. Here is a tank of water that's high in algae. It's obviously not healthy. The sun can't get through it. Look at how dark this is. They took a mini reef that had been out in the water for I think it's about 9 months, so it was very mature in its colonization, and they dropped it in this murky tank, and 4 hours later you could see literally through the tank like it was crystal clear water. This to me is a great example of how these mini reefs work in such a natural way, taking particles out of the water and making them healthier day in and day out. The Piney Point discharge in Bradenton really put us up with our heads alert to this exactly what I've just described with fertilizers happening to our waters and possibly feeding unnaturally the algae so that we get algal blooms that ultimately might turn into red tide. The center of Anna Maria has coordinated putting out almost 200 mini reefs around Anna Maria and out to the Manatee River. This is part of our Go Green 2 environmental push, and it's something that we've done in partnership with Ocean Habitats Incorporated. It was then when we brought Philippe Cousteau in to help us kick off our Go Green 2 campaign, and his endorsement and telling us to zip tie ourselves to our mangroves to protect them in our area, and where they are gone, do anything you can to help create environments to support the life that is struggling without the natural habitat. In the spring of 2020, we followed up with an educational presentation inviting speakers from the Clearwater Marine Aquarium to Anna Maria, where they followed up with the environmental themes and spent time educating us on right whales and manatees. It was at that event where that was really one of the sparks that helped us create our research project. In June of 2020, the center responded to a call by Mote Marine and Federal Fish and Wildlife Commission of Florida to propose ways for communities to help mitigate red tide. Looking back at the siege that we experienced of almost 14 months on the 2018 red tide bloom, we ultimately did not receive funding from this, but we established a relationship with Mote that led to the current partnership. We worked with this professor whom I met at the Clearwater event, Dr. Jorge Angulo, and he is a teacher at Eckerd College. He has a marine biology history going back to Cuba, where he did volumes of research, has written and authored many published articles and research, and is now working with the Galbraith Marine Laboratories at Eckerd. Here you see the students from Eckerd College as well as the Mote trainers. The center played a role in bringing Mote to the table to work and train the students on what to gather, to line it up with other research. As a result of the work that we've done, really working from the bottom up and from the research outward, word has gotten out through this publicity and these communications that have gone about our efforts and our outcomes here on Anna Maria. More people are learning, and we're getting great response from not only our community but the greater community as they learn about the details of our efforts at the center to pull together Mote Marine and Eckerd in this case. As a result, we pulled together what we call our Blue Waters Coalition, and we're founding it in 2021, and it is the result of all of the people and funders and research partners who have come together to help us at this point distribute the Mini-Reefs, examine the efficacy of their water filtration and their attraction of fish. We are producing data at this point under the aegis of the Blue Waters Coalition that was called for at the most recent Gulf Shellfish Research Institute workshop. All of the research that we're doing is important because there is a gap in the data with water filtration, particularly with bivalves and their filtration capabilities. As I mentioned earlier, red tide, it's a form of algae. It's a toxic form of algae that ends up poisoning air, water, fish. This is where you see the fish dying, the plants dying. It starts to then feed off its own death cycle. All the ammonium that comes out of the death cycle then feeds back in, continue to create toxic water and air environments. The question you see, will the Mini-Reefs eliminate red tide? I think the short answer is no. Red tide is a natural phenomenon, and the Earth had natural tools to deal with the cleaning and the management of when this sickness came along, like we do when a cold comes along. When we take away the tools by hardening canals and taking away natural defense systems, we need to make sure that we do something to help give our waters a method of cleaning themselves and healing themselves. We've made our waters very vulnerable to long bouts with red tide when we take away their antibodies, if you will, to fight this disease. So, in response to will Mini-Reefs eliminate red tide, I thought that the proposal, of course, that Mote put together with the Fish and Wildlife Commission, I learned a lot about the word mitigate. I looked at it, I thought about it, I literally looked it up and tried to understand what the verb mitigate means. And really, all we're trying to do is manage the natural influx, presence, an outflow of a red tide bloom to make it a natural cycle, length of time, intensity, which would happen in circumstances undisturbed by man. As I said earlier, word got out about the Mini-Reef. We've spoken to the different municipalities. There's actually 3 separate cities on the little island of Anna Maria, and we've got 2 of them actively engaged and one that's incorporating the Mini-Reef in its plan that has not yet been released. If you're interested in getting involved with our Citizen Scientist program or to look at installing a Mini-Reef of your own, visit the www.centerami.org/support. Click the turtle, the little AMI turtle, and you'll find yourself right at a series of options where you can purchase a single or multiple reefs. Feel free to contact me, Jim McDaniel. Information on the slide. You can feel free to call me at the office or drop an email to jim@centerami.org. We put a lot into this presentation and passed along a lot of information, and I'm sure there might be some questions. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to those questions and look forward to helping you understand what it is we're doing and get involved. Thank you.